So we've got car makers closing factories, cutting back production. The demand for new cars is at an all-time low, or so it would be if we believed the headlines and what's going on in the industry. But it does certainly seem to be a trend. People are less and less inclined to buy a new car or a newer car. So this video, we're going to look at your comments that you made on previous videos and just highlight some of the key objections that people have to buying a new car. And hopefully the manufacturers will sit up and take notice, because if they don't give drivers what they want, the drivers aren't going to be inclined to buy. So first up, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, EVs, electric cars. So judging by the comments that you guys have made on my last videos, you don't like EVs. There's a vitriol and hatred of all things EV. They've been cited as household appliances or handheld vacuum cleaners, and a lot of other overly emotional responses to the electric vehicle. But we're told that the electric vehicle is our future. So what are the objections that people have to EVs? Well, just judging by the comments that people are making, now this is what's in people's minds, are heavy depreciation, high initial purchase costs, range anxiety, battery life, and general charge times and general inconvenience of owning an EV. So some of those arguments have merit, some of those arguments have merits for certain people, and some depend on how we look after the car. So we're going to do another video, an unbiased look at EVs, and we're going to tackle a lot of the objections that people have and a lot of the misconceptions, and just outline the pros and cons of owning an EV. So stay tuned, but please let me know your comments on this video so that we can incorporate those into this upcoming video. And if we have got any pro EV watchers, please don't hold back. Let us know how you feel about the arguments against EVs and your own personal experience of it, because this helps us all to build out a more rounded out picture. It's certainly fair to say that a lot of people are just waiting to see how it plays out. Are EVs the future? Will they take off? How many of these objections are well founded in fact and experience, and how many are just scaremongering or perceived urban myths that people have about EVs? So that might be a reason they don't want to upgrade to a conventional combustion engine car, because they feel the future might be EV, but they're sitting on the fence. So manufacturers are making drastic price cuts to EVs in a bid to try and sell them. So if the price advantage is greater for buying that EV in the first place, it's probably going to attract more buyers. And car makers are under fairly strict quotas now, which is just going to go on getting stricter and stricter. So they're going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat in terms of upping people's desire for these electric vehicles, particularly on the used car market. Over 52% of the comments that we've had on previous videos, that is comments that expressed a reason for not buying a new car, was cost. The purchase price of a new car is astronomical. From 2014, we saw the average new car price in the UK at $14,627. And just 10 years later, in 2024, it had risen to $27,649. So that's getting on for double on the average car price of cars sold. In the same time period, we've seen car tax increasing. So to tax a vehicle to use on the roads, if you had a fairly economical vehicle, that would have cost you about £28 way back in 2014. But in 2024, that same car would cost you £190. And some of the older, more polluting cars are being hit with £1,000 tax bills just for owning it and using it on the road. So car tax has shot up extortionately. Car insurance premiums have also increased astronomically over the past few years. The average cost of car insurance has gone up by £200. And if you're a younger driver with a higher premium, it's gone well over. Fuel prices have also escalated. In 2014, the average fuel price was about £1.11 per litre. Yes, per litre. If you live in the UK, we're paying a lot for our fuel. In 2024, that has risen to £1.36 a litre, and it even hit a spike of £1.91, nearly £2 per litre in 2022. So fuel prices have certainly also gone up. So there's a lot of extra strain on the motorist budget. People are looking to save money, and buying a new car and shelling out those extortionately high prices are so far down on people's priorities. They'd rather keep the car they've got and just look after it. Another reason cited is complexity. Modern cars come with lots of eco junk, just to quote the comments that we've had on previous videos, and also unnecessary nannying devices that interfere with your driving. So these nanny devices have to be manually turned off every time you start the car. And because the car infotainment system is so complex now, it often takes 40 to 60 seconds to boot up before you can get into a menu to disable the functions that you don't want. So what are the functions that people particularly object to? Well, things like lane assist, where you're trying to avoid potholes at the side of the road and the lane assist is pushing you back into the potholes at the side of the road. Speed assist, which will notify you if you go over the speed limit. Now, on paper, that seems like a good safety idea, but the reality is that it's not accurate. A lot of drivers have been caught out on main roads where their system has picked up a road sign or an out-of-date sat-nav reference to a speed limit that no longer is enforceable at the time you're driving, and it's fired up that speed warning sign when the driver is perfectly legally driving along. So in an attempt to police drivers and nanny them and keep them to the speed limit, they're actually distracting drivers, which I'm sure is going to result in potential accidents in the future. And again, this is something that people can't turn off. It's cars after 2024 in the UK. I think it was about July time they fitted these devices as standard. They varied from audible pings to vibrations to physically dropping the speed or restricting your use of the accelerator if you were above the posted speed limit or the claimed posted speed limit. Automatic braking, braking assist, collision avoidance. Now, these systems are quite life-saving when they work nicely, but we've had instances of birds flying in front of the car and the car going into a full-on emergency stop situation, and that's caused problems. So again, this safety device also brings with it another level of risk for the driver. And we've got hill assist, main beam adjustment, auto dimming main beams. When cars are oncoming, your main beam will shut off. Now, these are devices that are really assuming the driver is an idiot, and we're not all idiots. We don't need this degree of automatic system in our car. We know when to turn the wipers on. We know when to turn the lights on. And these other systems are just going a little bit far, taking control away from the driver. Electronic parking brakes and a lack of a spare tyre are also concerns for many drivers of newer cars. The electronic parking brake can't be used if the battery is flat. If your alternator dies, you lose so many of the car's systems that are electronic, your power steering will go, and it can make the car quite hard to roll to a stop. So that's an unlikely situation, but it is a real risk because we're relying so heavily on the electrical side of our cars nowadays. And the lack of a spare is making room for hybrid batteries or just saving weight overall. And we've all been in the situation where we've had a pretty bad puncture or we've ripped a tyre. And although that only happens to us once every few years, or we get a nail in the tyre once a year, the inconvenience of having to deal with a flat, and a lot of these temporary fix tyre kits will actually damage the tyre. So they're more of a limp home solution, and you then have to replace the tyre. Whereas if you took the tyre off, you could probably have had it repaired and put back on the car. So that will vary to an extent as to what type of emergency car tyre repair kit you're provided. But not having a spare tyre really does concern a lot of motorists. And a lot of motorists have just gone out and bought a space saver spare that they just throw in the back of the car. So having a big tyre rattling around in the car unsecured because it's not a standard fit is another potential danger. You hit something hard and that extra force is going to be hitting the back passenger seats and cause all sorts of untold damage. Systems that people do appreciate though are things like ABS braking and stability control. They're not that intrusive. They only cut in when you desperately need them to, and you can rely on your ABS to give you the very shortest stopping distance in most everyday driving conditions. About a quarter of the comments also cited environmental reasons for not getting a new car, but surely new cars are more economical. Well, people feel generally that buying a new car and scrapping the old car is putting up the carbon footprint of car ownership significantly, and they don't like the idea of throwing something away or scrapping something, which is the inevitable fate of a car. Even if you sell it into the used car market, it will eventually become scrap. and have to be dealt with. So by hanging on to their car and nursing it, they can save that potential environmental cost. And a lot of people have also said that some of these older cars, now we're talking about cars from the 90s to the 2000s, are more economical than modern cars, because modern cars are specifically cobbled with all these pollution and eco controls. So that's another thing we need to mention. The eco systems that are fitted to modern cars, we've got catalysts, we've got EGR, exhaust gas recirculation, we've got particulate filters, not just on diesels now. Most internal combustion engines will now have a particulate filter. And a lot of drivers have had issues with older particulate filters keep clogging up. They've paid over $1,000 to get this unit replaced or properly cleaned, and then a year later they've had the same problem because the underlying cause of the excess soot production has not been addressed. And they're really fed up by that stage, and they're looking for an older car that's simpler, that doesn't have these modern pollution control systems that are going to come back and bite the driver's pocket at some point in the future. Now, it's fair to say manufacturers have moved on. The modern EGR, exhaust gas recirculation systems, have various levels of complexity, cooling. They often come after the particulate filters. The particulate filters have been sited to work efficiently closer to the engine where there is more heat. And the overall design of the particulate filter is less resistant to being clogged up or blocked up. But again, if you use the wrong fluids in the car, the wrong oil particularly, you're going to have a problem with these particulate filters clogging up. So privacy is also a concern. Modern cars are always connected. They're always reporting back your usage of the car. So some cars track your speed, your location, the RPM you're driving at, the amount of throttle you're using. Every aspect really of you driving the car is being logged and sent back to the manufacturer, and people don't like that level of intrusion. There's always that worry in people's mind that manufacturers are going to sell this data, or they're going to use it to avoid paying out warranty claims because the car has been misused, because you accelerated a bit quickly on a Monday morning because you were overtaking a potential hazard up ahead. But that's really an anecdotal worry. I don't think there's any documented evidence of manufacturers refusing warranty based on the data that they've collected. But the fact the car is always connected, we've had issues in countries where the 3G network has been switched off, and some of these older cars used a 3G SIM. So the owner is left with a car that doesn't have all the functions he had when he purchased it, or it renders the car almost unusable just because this 3G network has been switched off, and there's no potential upgrade. The manufacturers regard cars as disposable. They want you to get rid of your car after a period of say 10 or 15 years and go out and buy a new one. They don't really want the car lasting because they're not making any money on new cars. So maintenance is also a problem to a lot of drivers because it's not as easy to maintain a car as it used to be. A lot of cars nowadays can only be maintained by the dealer. Even a simple service and oil change, the car needs to be plugged into a computer to reset the service light. So doing this job at home without the relevant plug-in computer is quite hard, and other jobs are even more involved and require this specialist technical equipment in order to perform these basic functions. So we've got a situation where drivers have potentially got an older car that needs to go back to the dealer, and the dealer fees, the local Audi dealer that I used, they were quoting an hourly rate in excess of £250 an hour. So that is going to write off a lot of older cars if they need serious work or a lot of specialist attention. The old service book that the dealer used to stamp has also become a thing of the past. They're now digital. You get a digital record of your car's service history. So this makes checking it much harder. If you buy a car, it's not as easy to look at the details you provided and just check that that is genuine, that it has been serviced. It's only really by taking it into somewhere that they can plug the computer into a diagnostic system and download the data that's stored in the car can you actually get a good picture of how the car has been looked after and maintained over the years. Now, a lot of modern cars are hybrids. The idea is it's a simple midway between the combustion engine and the full electric. Some even allow you to plug in and charge the battery from the mains, and they quote astronomical miles per gallon figures in excess of 200, 250 miles per gallon, because you've got the battery that's providing about 40 miles or sometimes up to about 80 or 90 miles of range. But these are not suitable for everyone. We did a video recently discussing the problems that people are having with the 12-volt battery on hybrid cars that is used infrequently. So if you're an infrequent driver, you can actually have a lot of frustration and problems if you went with one of these modern hybrid cars. So overall, people just want simple cars. They don't want all these gadgets. They don't want to be nannied or told how to drive. So manufacturers really need to sit up and take notice of that. We don't want all of these extra devices, and if they're on the car and have to be on the car, let's make it easier to turn them off. Some manufacturers have got such complex entertainment screens that just changing the air conditioning setting is often a 3-act drama. There's so many button presses that you have to make. So let's go back to the simpler setup where we've actually just got a few buttons that control those main systems on the car, rather than adding all this extra complexity and having to force the driver to wait for this infotainment system to boot up. You've also got the problem of a lot of these infotainment systems crashing or having other serious computer related glitches. So some manufacturers have just switched and upgraded their infotainment system, and they've had so many problems. Cars have been off the road for up to 7 days while they've gone back to the dealership to just sort out this infotainment problem that people were having. So please, manufacturers, let's have simpler cars that we can maintain more easily. Focus on reliability. We would rather pay for a car that is reliable than have one that is going to cost us a fortune over our car ownership just to keep it running, keeping it on the road. So please let me know your thoughts on this subject. Please boot the like button, because that really does help us to get out there. If you're not subscribed to the channel, and a lot of people watching these videos are not subscribed to the channel, looking at the stats, it would really help us out. So please just subscribe and you won't miss out on all the great content we've got coming out. And I've lined this video up for you and this playlist that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in this next video.